What's up, everybody? We're back. Men of Order Sports. Welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe if you are new here. We've been cashing out all season long. I got Big Mike Raider back again. The Raiders have been failing us, but Big Mike Raider is not failing us. He is staying dedicated to the mission here. He is back to give us some winning bets, despite the Raiders being, it's the season blew up right in front of our faces. A lot of promising stuff going on, but through all of that, Big Mike has been on the money in terms of money when you're talking about betting these games. So he knows what he's talking about. He knows how to dissect these games. Obviously, they're not going the way that we all wanted here. Shout out Raider Nation. I've been with you guys the whole season, and we've been losing bets only when we were doing that. So,
Man,
Mike, what you got in this game? Because this is a matchup where it's like I feel like this is the fourth week in a row where I'm saying this is the game that the Raiders can get back on track. This is a must-win. One, two. This is the perfect matchup. They have the opportunity. Last week it was the Colts. The week before that it was the Jags. Now it's the Broncos. I mean, it has to happen at some point, right?
you know what? I'm gonna first say that I'm gonna get into the tanking theory that I have about the Raiders later on. We'll talk about that after we get into the numbers. But as far as this game goes, Raiders and Broncos, like it says right there, it's a 2.5. The Broncos are 2.5 point favorites, over under a 41.5. The Raiders won the first meeting 32 to 23. So, and that was at home. This is a tale of two sputtering offenses. Now the difference is that one defense is playing lights out football, which is the Broncos. They're like number one in points allowed and number two in yards allowed. And then you got on the other side pretty much just the opposite with the Raiders, who are giving up lots of yards and allowing 25.1 points per game, which is both 28th in the league. So, for the Raiders, I wouldn't really count on them to defensively play well. We've seen the last previous 3 weeks where teams have had their best game offensively against these Raiders. We saw it against the Colts. The Colts finally broke out. We saw Jonathan Taylor finally break out. He hasn't done that all season. The week before, we saw Travis Etienne. He broke for over 100, and you saw what's his name, quarterback for the Jaguars.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, sorry, Trevor. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. We saw him go off, and then Alvin Kamara the week before. So, in saying all that, like I got Russell Wilson. I like Russell Wilson having the game of his Denver Broncos career. We've been waiting for him to wake up, basically, and
Yeah.
and I think that he's going to finally wake up in this game. As far as props go, I like Russell Wilson over 1.5 touchdowns. It's a plus 118 for Caesars, and it's a plus 125 on DraftKings. So, that's something to consider if you want to, stack that up with something else for this game. And then I like also the over 225.5, and that's a minus 115 on DraftKings and minus 117 on Caesars.
Yeah, you're definitely getting good value on the Russell Wilson play every week there with the passing touchdowns, just because they don't put up points in general. So if they do put up 14 points, you got to hope that they were both Russell Wilson passing touchdowns at that point. The only pushback I will have is this injury report here worries me a little bit for the Broncos offense. Jerry Jeudy doubtful with an ankle injury. KJ Hamler is out for sure with a hamstring injury. Kendall Hinton is questionable with a shoulder injury. Those are three wide receivers that were three of the top four wide receivers when they did play the Raiders a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Now I know the Raiders won that game, and they won that game because of their rushing offense. Josh Jacobs. That was when Josh Jacobs was in the middle of going off. I feel like they got to go back to him. So that's where I'm going with probably my top bet here would be to get Josh Jacobs in the game. And I think they have him set at 77.5 rushing yards. I think he can smash that. They're not going to be able to pass all over this defense. We saw Devontae Adams go off last time. He had 101 yards on 9 catches, but the next highest catch volume was 3 catches for like 33 yards. I forget who it was, but I don't see Derek Carr just getting back there and nickel and diming this defense. It didn't happen last time. I don't think it's going to happen again. I think they got to feed Josh Jacobs. And we're recording this Friday, everybody. So everybody who wants like our official picks, we'll probably leave that in the comments or hit that subscribe button and tune in Sunday morning as well, because that's when me and Chad go through and I'll talk about what me and Mike talked about here anyway and confirm some picks or not. But we're going off limited lines right now, but I do think Josh Jacobs carries would be a good play also, depending what number they have it set at when it comes out. And the other play, this goes along with what you were saying about Russell Wilson, having a good day, and how I mentioned, most of his wide receivers and weapons are out. They have Melvin Gordon listed at over 9.5 receiving yards. I think I'm going to slam that. That's
Yeah,
probably going to end up being an official play. Like, it
easy
might be an
money.
official play right now, really, because
Yeah,
he's the only game he didn't have that was like he had a game where he had 6, I think. Other than
yeah,
that, he's been hitting at least 14, 15, 16. He had a couple games with 40. He had like 49 last week. Russ doesn't really have anybody else that he's going to be able to go to
yeah.
besides Cortland Sutton, obviously.
And that's where I
But
was going at is like Sutton. He's going to be the only show in town as far as wide receivers go. I like him, over I have him over over 60 and a half yards, so minus 115 for DraftKings, minus 131 for Caesars. So Caesars they kind of see like that might be the idea as well. Um yeah, I would go Cortland Sutton over 60 and a half yards just because he's going to be that number one receiver for that game. And the Raiders secondary has been decimated with injury all season, and I think that he's gonna capitalize on that. He's gonna get a lot of yardage, and since I do think Russell Wilson's gonna have his best game of the year against the Raiders this game, uh, I like him. I like him for well over 60 and a half yards in this game.
all right, yeah, yeah, and well, see, I'm going with like the easier play. I feel like a little bit like
Yeah,
all it's going to take is getting a little bit of pressure for the Raiders. I know that's a tough task so far this season, but the Broncos also give up a lot of sacks. Let me find you guys the exact number real quick, actually, because their uh, offense is 28th in sacks given up. So, yes,
yeah,
the Raiders have no pass rush, but we talked about this last week also. And
mm,
they're going up against a team that can't block and stop the pass rush. So, something's got to give in that matchup.
yep,
And, all it takes is a couple pressure plays where he dumps it off to Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon breaks one or a screen play, things like that. They're limited on options. So, I'm like 10 yards for Melvin Gordon against this defense. I like that in the past game. I think that'll probably go up throughout the week, so that might be something that we got to go lock in as soon
yeah.
as you
Now,
guys see
yeah,
this. If you like this pick, um, especially if like Hinton is ruled out officially or something like that, that number will jump a little bit. Dolich is also someone to look at in the past game for the Broncos, but I don't want to put too much faith in the Broncos. I'm only playing one play, if that, on the Broncos. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Cortland
That's
Sutton is
understandable.
like that. That can definitely hit too with Judy out and everything. Like he's got to go somewhere downfield. They like passing downfield. When they are successful passing, they're like top 15 in yards per completion. So they do pass downfield. That's Cortland Sutton's game. So I agree with that. It's just going to take a little bit more. It's going to take a couple sustained drives for Cortland Sutton to get there. So I'm banking on the a little bit easier option when we're trusting the Broncos offense here, because I think
Yeah,
that's the last thing I want to do is trust the Broncos offense. You know what I mean?
yeah. That's completely understandable, and I think that I'm giving no credit to the Raiders defense in this situation. That's
Right.
why I'm leaning to hey, the Broncos are going to light it up finally, just because I just have no faith in the Raiders defense this year. Um, And yeah, if you want like a no sweat bet, you don't have to sweat it too much. Yeah, that's perfect because they are bad at covering with offensive line coverage, and in those kind of situations, you got Russell Wilson. He's going to dump it down, check it down to the easy receiver. So yeah, that's an easy pick. I like it. Um, that's where I would go as well.
Yeah, and then like I said, Josh Jacobs on the Raiders side. Obviously, Devontae Adams can do his thing on
Yeah,
any given Sunday. They're getting Foster Moreau involved. That was a great call by you last week. We hit on that touchdown parlay, which I put Moreau in there because you brought it to my attention when we did our show on the Raiders Colts game. So thank you for that. We
yeah.
cashed out on that, but I just don't see them having the same success as they did against that Colts defense, that Colts pass defense.
Yeah, the running game is gonna struggle in this game. The once you get that Broncos fan base fired up, if they score early and the game kind of gets out of hand, and then that kind of ties into what I was gonna say next. The game kind of gets out of hand, or the Broncos go up a couple touchdowns. Carr's gonna be forced to throw the ball, and I would have him for an interception in this game.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I like an interception for Derek Carr for this one. I know I don't have much good to say about the Raiders these days, but you know, if you're going to bet on the Raiders, bet on Derek Carr throwing at least an interception on the road. I mean, that's especially I've seen it time and time again with the Chiefs on the road in a hostile situation. I see the same thing in a hostile situation in Denver. So
Yeah, if he
that'll be
tries to
something to
start
consider.
forcing it, you're
Yeah,
thinking, like trying to come back. I hope it doesn't go that way just for my my Josh Jacobs, like, thought
yeah,
process. I think, I'd like to think the Raiders can maybe keep this under control and use Josh Jacobs to do that, like they did last time they played, and they were able to win that game by, I think, 9 points, I think it was. So I think it would be a good strategy to go back to, but you're definitely not wrong, because if it plays out that way, Derek Carr starts forcing it. They think they got to make up a lot of ground in not so much time. Throws an interception. I could see it. They've been doing good with not turning the ball over. Besides that Week 1 performance with the Chargers,
yeah,
since then been doing pretty well. But I could see it. There's it's due for some regression in that department where they are going to turn the ball over. So I could definitely see it. I agree with you
yeah.
there.
You
I'm
know,
going to get into. Oh, go ahead.
so real quick about the whole Josh Jacobs thing, like I'm kind of reserved about going anywhere, any kind of like move with Josh Jacobs just because of coaching calls. Um, you know, the Raiders are this is a
Mm-hmm.
weird stat. They're like one of the bottom teams in rushing yards, like in a game, but yards per rush, they're eighth. So that just tells me that they're not running the ball enough. And I think
Right.
Josh McDaniels is just like, for some reason, he's just not getting that. Hey, your strength is your running game. And, you know, he might also think that, hey, we lit him up on offense. I mean, lit him up on the running game the previous game. He might outthink himself and kind of go out, and try to do the opposite. Or you might see a situation where the Broncos defense is like, we can't let this happen again, and you shut down Josh Jacobs early. So that's why I'm not really mentioning Josh Jacobs, because it's one of those things where I'm not confident either way, whether he might go over or under. I don't know. Like I'm not confident on the outcome of either what can happen to either side.
See, this is why we bring you on the show here, because I like all of those points. I totally agree. It makes sense. And I've been saying it all season long. There's certain games where we were looking at Josh Jacobs and we're like, this would be the perfect game to give him the rock 25 times. But
Yeah.
I'm not taking his props because I don't know if they're going to do it. I
Right.
did go ahead and do it last week, and they got him the rock.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked to an extent. They were right there at the end of the game with the chance to win it.
Yep.
They were a dropped pass away from winning it. Um, so I mean, I could see them going back to it, but I see what you're saying. So I definitely agree. I was leaning towards a no bet game anyway until I looked at those numbers, and I see Josh Jacobs at a 77.5, a low 77.5 in my opinion.
Yeah.
That makes me want to take a stab at it.
Yeah.
But I get your concerns. And then Melvin Gordon, I mean, that number's so low. He's involved in the passing game ever
Yeah.
since he's been the starter, even
Yep.
before that. But yeah, so I like that play. But in general, I feel like this is a no bet game for me. Like I'm not digging too deep, but one of those plays might make it to Sunday when we're doing our official show.
Yep.
I'm gonna go through a couple little other matchup things that we didn't really discuss, and then we're gonna get into your thoughts about the Raiders tanking here, and then we'll wrap it up. But
Okay.
the only other thing I wanted to talk about here was this. It's like a bad on bad matchup when Denver has the rock. Denver is 31st in third down percentage on offense, and the Vegas defense is 30th in third down percentage. And in the red zone, even worse, both units are literally last in red zone touchdown percentage. So where do you see this over under going based on those numbers? I know you said the Broncos might have a chance to light it up here, but if they can't move the ball or score in the red zone, that ain't gonna happen.
You know what? As far as over under
But
goes,
it is
I'm
the
not.
Raiders defense,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I'm not touching this one. I'm not touching over under either side. I have the game 24-17. So take it as you may. The under, you're gonna be flirting with over that situation. So I would kind of see how the game is going, and then kind of make your bet based on the flow of the game. But I got the score 24-17 Broncos. I can see in a situation where Derek Carr has the ball in the final drive, throws an interception, and then game over. So
Yeah,
that kind of
that'll
emphasizes that.
cash a couple bets there.
Yeah. So I got 24-17. So if you want to look at that, I will go the under. and then you also got the Broncos covering that 2.5. So that's how I see the game going with that one.
Right. Gotcha. Right on. And then we don't have any lines yet for kicking props yet, but this is
Yep.
one I'm gonna take a look at. The Raiders here, they are eighth in field goals made,
Yep.
kicking 100% on the season so far, which is amazing. You know what I mean? You can trust that for over 1.5 field goal play. When the
Yeah.
lines come out, that's probably what it's going to be. As long as it's not super juiced up, I'm probably going to take it. The Broncos do allow the 31st most field goals made against them, and that's because they have the number one red zone defense. So they're going to stop the Raiders when they get down there, I think, at least. And, it's up to Carlson knocking in the field goals at that point, which he's done at a very, very, very consistent rate all season. So as long as that number's not super juiced up, that may make the cut as the bet for this game also. But like I always say, tune into the Sunday show because that's where we will make these plays official. We don't have all the lines out yet, so we're just talking about what we have and kind of discussing it, doing some game analysis here. Mike, you think your Raiders are tanking?
So I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. So the reason why I say I'm on the fence about it, and we'll know a lot more about what's going to happen as far as tanking goes, is this. So you got in this game, the Raiders win this game. If the Raiders do win this game, they're going to be third place in their division. So that affects scheduling for next year, assuming they stay in the third place spot, and it affects draft order. Now it's in no interest for the Broncos to tank because they don't have next year's draft pick. So they have an emphasis on trying to win games. They still, they want to get a return on investment for Russell Wilson. If you give up a top 10 draft pick to Seattle, then it doesn't that trade doesn't look good. So there's no tanking situation in Denver. But on the flip side, the Raiders, if they do win, they're going to be in third place, like I said, and scheduling and draft order. So that will kill that whole idea of them tanking. But if they lose and then they lose big, then you got to start looking at, you just lost to a Broncos team who you've beaten the last 4 years. We haven't lost to the Raiders haven't lost to the Broncos in like 3 years. They won I think 5 straight and then 7 out of the last 10. So the Raiders have their number. So if you go into Denver and lay an egg big time, to the fan base is going to look like, okay, this is official. This is an official tank job. That's what I would say.
Right.
And you would know a lot more after this game, like play calling and what's going on with the offense and defense and things like that. And if you notice, the Raiders start off hot. You get the fan base excited. And then towards the end of games, I don't know. I don't know if it's an adjustment situation or what's going on with the play calling, but it's just not the same as the first half. So
self-implode.
They self-implode, exactly. So it's like, watch this game, Raider Nation. That's what I would say. Watch this game. You'll get a better idea whether they're trying to tank or not.
Yeah, and self-imploding like that week in and week out to the point where it's historical how much you're giving up leads. That sounds like a tank job to me. If you ask me, you know what I mean, in my unexpert opinion there. But I mean, I guess it makes sense at this point. If that is the case, if that is the strategy, I can't really argue it if I'm on the Raiders side of things. The season's over. It's not like winning games is going to help you. And you're exactly right about the Broncos. Losing games only makes them look worse. The trade already looks bad as it is. If you give them a top 5 draft pick, top 7, 8 draft pick, it's going to just look way worse because it looks bad as it is with Geno Smith absolutely lighting the NFC up over there. So yeah, we'll see. A couple more things just about that matchup. You talked about, the Raiders' success in this matchup. The Raiders are 9-1 against the spread in the last 10 games versus the Broncos. The underdog is 7-2 against the spread in the last 9 meetings between these teams. The under is 9-3 in the last 12. But the home team is also 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 games between these two teams. So just a couple more bones for you guys to chew on before we lock any of these bets in on Sunday. And make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you turn that bell notification on so you don't forget about that. We'll be here with a couple more shows. Me and Mike are also going to do the Sunday night matchup, keeping it in the AFC West. So we take care of the whole AFC West this weekend with the Chiefs-Chargers game. So we'll have that out also. I got my boy Mike coming on. My other boy Mike, actually. I just realized I didn't even put that together before I said that. But my other boy Mike is coming on to do the Cowboys Vikings game. He's a Cowboys fan. He's got a sports podcast as well. All of Mike's information and his podcast link are going to be in the description box right below. So make sure you tune into that. And that's about it. Other than that, happy betting. Best of luck betting. And we out. Peace.
Peace.